Manhood, brought to you in part by Solomon's Bespoke. Manhood, brought to you in part by Reboot Sports Drink.
Welcome to another episode of Manhood where we aim to be better as brothers. Today is an interesting one. Why would a man commit a crime? We know we're in a state of emergency and it's very much on the tip of everyone's tongue and at the very forefront of everyone's brain with regards to what is happening right now in what was called Sweet TNT. So why would a man commit a crime? I have no better panel today than to my right, Johanse IODK, Behavior Change Consultant, ACP Wayne Mystar, and then to his right, Kendall Leslie joins us here, multimedia technician. So we want to get straight into it, gentlemen, because I myself have a lot of questions and concerns. Of course, the obvious is, people that we target as the criminal element. But crime is such a broad area, where everyone in some way, form, or fashion, in some aspect, whether they know it or not, commits a crime. Whether it be white collar crime, green collar crime, I think it's called green collar or blue collar. There's so many other aspects.
White collar crime. I don't even have a blue collar crime. I never really hear one.
Right. I must see a color.
But they have green, like environmental and all of that, But we keep using the words, for persons like ourselves, we all have a bit of white in our beard, even white people die in it this morning. That we call Trinidad and Tobago Sweet TNT. And for the most part, it is still Sweet TNT. The people in Trinidad and Tobago are special.
You sure about that? You sure
However,
sweet?
There's a group of persons that on a wider or larger perspective are causing maybe heinous crimes. But overall, we are good people. I mean, we see it Carnival and a whole load of other things. I mean, I wouldn't like to just broad brush Trinidad and Tobago as a land ridden in crime.
Not really. Even when you're saying good, right? When you're saying that we are generally good people.
I didn't say a good boy, eh?
Good people. When you say we are good people, is that what I was discussing before? What I said, why do Trinidadians break the law? Right? I didn't say why they are criminals. I said why do Trinidadians break the law?
Trinbagonians.
Okay. Trinbagonians. My apologies. Right? If people break the red light, right? If somebody break the red light, can they be still considered good?
Well, they committed a crime, yes.
Okay. If you drive on the shoulder when you're not supposed to, you still considered good? If you litter, you still considered good? I just going through all because
have a real problem with
people who do these things might be considered quote unquote criminals. But we say the good people are TNT and Sweet TNT,
but
right?
I'm not Trinidad driving culture. You brake light, drive on shoulder.
Well, that's a good point. Culture, no, what he's saying is culture not in alignment with the law, right? And if the culture not in alignment with the law, then something fundamentally wrong.
So Wayne, as we always talk about, whether you like it or not, right? The law is the law. So until the law changes and it goes to Parliament, your cabinet, Parliament, etc., and the law is changed, it is still the law. So until that point, if you do something, you could turn around here and as we had in I don't really like to date these episodes, but last week's episode where we talk about ignorance of the law, right? Part of that is whether you like it or not. What the law is at that point, whether it be smoking your little herb and so on back in the day before it was decriminalized, it was against the law at that point.
Okay.
So, to answer your question, if you break a red light,
he's not a good person.
What I want to say in a nutshell, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. That's all I can say. Every one of us.
We casting no stones,
right?
We casting no stones, right?
But every one of us, in some form or fashion, would have broken the law in some, But we tend to focus on heinous crimes. We tend to focus on this thing's serious and so on. But yet in our little space, we are doing little things. So if you want, Michael Jackson said it. Look at the man in the mirror. And if you start there. Probably we might get some answers.
Because Kendall say culture, right?
Yeah.
If we are a culture of lawbreakers, right, then is this crime situation is systemic. Because somebody haven't reached the stage of being a murderer, right, doesn't mean they're still not breaking the law. And if you get accustomed doing something, right, it could encourage you to go further. And as human nature, sometimes we test things, right? So, if I break a light, if I do this, if I do that, eventually it might do something
Another
even
thing
worse.
to enforcement of the law also too. Now
Correct.
remember the time when you used to drive without seatbelt? Nobody used to study that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they say mandatory, you had to wear your seatbelt or else.
Right.
Everybody started to wear the seatbelt. You don't know it's a fine.
Mm-hmm.
But breaking a traffic light, most of the time I know police officer might like to say, okay, there are cameras that are not even working to say you get a ticket home or something like that. So
Right.
But talk about traffic light. Let me ask you a question. You're coming home from an event 3 o'clock in the morning and you stop by this traffic light. It's a lonely traffic light. But in your mind you're telling yourself, some people get robbed here the last time,
Mm.
Right. I
So,
know you're good.
so in that aspect, you're telling yourself, well, you look left, you look right, okay, nothing is coming. So a lot of people ask me, is that okay? But I can't say that it's okay because they will go and say, I say to do that. But then there's a safety consideration.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you may say something, all right, how much of us who have kids here will sell out the child? The child committing an offense,
Mm.
and you have that child and you know that child committing an offense. How much of us, when the police come and knock on the door, yeah, he did it. I know one mother from Maloney did it. She called the police for her son. Huh?
Right.
But how much of us will do that?
Mm-hmm. True.
But
My
sometimes you
daughter-
might call them to save them, huh?
my daughter shoplifted that time. And we didn't know. And she had the candy in the car. I said, wait, now where you get that? I take it. Oh, you take it? You know what you get for that? We drive straight in the police station. Oh my God, she started a ball. And the officer commended us because to come and talk to her and let her know what that is
You made
wrong.
that a fright now. But
Correct.
if she had, let's say she had committed a murder, and you know for a fact, let me hear.
She
But
do it.
a parent, let's say, a parent not hardly ever is doing that. Even in a community, when they say, so-and-so is a good boy, if they're benefiting in a particular way, they won't call on that, which is part of the problem. In a lot of times, it's the evidence, because it's one thing to hold somebody, but how do you now convict that person?
Now you see that word you used there. You said, if they're benefiting, right? So doing some research for this, human behavior in general, we only do things if our brain could come up with a reward for the action, right? We don't do any action unless we have a reward for it. So if we asking why would men commit crime, why do people commit crime, it's because in the moment there's a perceived reward. So if I don't want to be in danger of being robbed by a traffic light, right, I will weigh the options. It's a possibility I could be robbed, or I will break the traffic light. Right now, the reward is, the value is I will break the traffic light. Because I know it had no cameras, right? Because if it had cameras that would have sent a ticket to my house, then there's a different consideration.
So you need certain elements or levels of control in
Con-
order to
control, but-
to be able to not break the law in certain circumstances. Because I know that cameras not working are gonna go past 60K.
Right.
In a 6-day zone, right?
Right. And if it's some
I know-
value to you also.
Correct. If I'm not gonna get charged, because that's what happened with, I know a lot of persons on the priority bus route, speeding, all of these things. They had accounts set up. These are people of like wealth, right? So, of means. They set up an account to say, okay, well, I'm gonna go on the bus route, I'm gonna speed, I'm gonna be on my cell phone. If I get stopped, I pay the fine.
Also, they have a budget for
They
that.
have a budget for that. When the law came about the demerits, that's when it now reached a point that, oh God, this affected me different. I can't pay my way out of this now. This is now, my license could be revoked or suspended. And therefore, that's when, as a result of that, you behave. So even as big people, you need certain levels of control. And as you said it, Wayne, just now about man in the mirror, we also have a culture about who's you, right? Or like for example, we put certain levels on crime. So the traffic light, for example, one of the things I would recommend to anybody listening is not to break the traffic light, because we've seen many really bad accidents in Mukarapo and McCoy and other areas with people doing that. I'm talking about where you can roll up to the traffic light. So you see, if you're coming to a traffic light, you approach it slowly. So by the time it changes, you move on. So you're not coming to a complete stop.
But I'm asking
Right.
like this, breaking the traffic light, what constitutes breaking a traffic light? Anybody can say? Is it going when the light on red?
Well, I would say the obvious. If you light on red and you break it, that's breaking it.
No.
Also,
So you know
if it's
you
on
know
yellow.
that's not the case, right? You know what's breaking out? You know what's breaking out traffic light? No. On major road. You see the line on the ground? Once you cross that white line, even though you stop, but you cross the white line,
Even, and light on red.
based on the law,
Right.
you broke the white line. So this is just for Trinidad and Tobago.
Right, this is your camera here.
Yeah, that white line. You see that white line? So suddenly you reach by an uncontrollable intersection or you reach a major road, but you pop your nose out. Once you cross their line, you have broken the safety
Wow.
barrier.
No, what you're saying.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know
Another
that.
person didn't know that.
But what you're saying makes sense, right? And this is what Kendall was saying.
Because the
about-
sensor is there on that
you
white line.
see, the thing is, if one, the law is not in alignment with culture, you always have these kind of difficulties. And then if it's not enforced, then the culture will override the law, right? That is two. Then three, you were saying that people need some sort of control, right? Now, I agree with that to a point, but and for those who travel to other countries, the law, though, or the control, still has some kind of functionality to it, right? And I'm going to give you an example. If it is that there's no parking in the city, right? There's no parking lots, things like that. And people have problems parking. But then the law say you can't park on certain streets.
Right.
Then it's not functional
Or
to
on a
even...
continuous white line.
Right. Then it's not functional for therefore even the people to operate to follow the law. So the law still has to be some sort of functionality, because I'm not condoning breaking the law, but even as you're saying, if it is, I am unsafe at a red light, and for my safety, then I will break the law. If it's not functional, that means it's not functional in the moment. So I adding all these elements because we're asking question, why would a man commit a crime?
Well, but you're touching, you made a very good point early. You talk about the word benefit. Now, that is a serious thing, right? We all do things when it's convenient to us. If it's convenient to me and I am benefiting, I am okay. So, sometime I went to church and an elderly lady said, you know what is sin? I said, well, no, Auntie, tell me. She says, sin is what you're not doing. Hear the heights of that. She says, sin is what you see somebody else doing. It's not what you just do. It's what you just see somebody else doing. So in other words, what she's trying to say is that we don't see, monkey don't see the length of the tail. Remember them kind of old time saying?
Right. I like that one.
We
though.
don't see the
I'm
length of
normally
the
the
tail.
one who gives
We
the
don't see everybody's tail. And the reason why we don't see our tail is that we're benefiting somehow.
Yeah,
There's a benefit.
correct.
And once we're not benefiting and we see somebody else benefiting, all of a sudden you're not happy for a black man. You know, you say, wait now, he doing something wrong.
Yeah.
He was doing it before in a different position. You might have a position today and you have one position now, and then when they change your position and they go somewhere else, you have a different view of what you was experiencing.
Correct.
So I'll give you an experience in terms of, so even on my days of being a sports anchor, I would see parents who would have no interest in something like water polo or sailing. The moment their child or nephew or somebody in their community does something well, all of a sudden, well, they could not be reporting on these things and make a big issue of it because it's now in their garden. And it's important to them. And I have to try and explain that, yes, I agree that all sports should be covered, but at the end of the day, for the most part, we have to cover what is nationally of interest nationally on a broader scale when we're covering sport. But yes, we want to be all inclusive. But so again, it when it impacts them, but you also see, so one of my pet peeves are people driving on the right side. They say keep left except when overtaken, not using the indicator. But when you go on the Eastern Main Road, for example, and you can't park on a continuous white line, you can't even stop. So I ask myself, how does these shops and business places and so on get permits and permission to set up along the main road when you don't have parking?
You see,
So
culture not in alignment
so the
with the
culture
law,
not in
and
alignment
it's not
with the law.
functional.
But on top of that, people, somebody will park to come out and buy a roti, right? And then go down the road, drive off with the roti, and then beat behind somebody for parking, for causing traffic. Now that they're inconvenienced.
But what Kendall said something about enforcement, right? So never join in that scenario.
Right.
That same simple thing like a parking, right? So the police arrive now to enforce the law. It's the right thing. Park, no parking zone.
Or the
Or
wicked.
they're too wicked. Why don't go and catch a murderer? So we contributing, right? Contributing because the police officers, we got to realize that in the police service, we have different officers for different things. That's like in CNC3. Not everybody is the anchor. Not everybody is the engineer. So we have traffic officers who does enforce the law. So they specifically, so when you talk about roadblocks, so you have the traffic officers really doing the roadblocks. And when they check, you'll be surprised to see men driving disqualified from holding a permit. But they want all the officers to go and catch a murderer and stuff. A fair statement. But we have other things taking place that we must look into.
But when you are a senior officer, you've been in this environment and on all aspects of the environment, even highway division. Do you find it difficult to execute your role in this same said culture? Do you think it's fair how the police service is looked at, and do you think that you get the support to effect that role?
Yeah.
And also from a management perspective, seeing as an ACP.
It's like a double-edged sword. I wouldn't bury my head in the sand. We have some challenges. We have police officers who does do nonsense.
Who's part of the culture.
Right? Who's part of the culture, right?
Correct.
Because guess where we get the police officers from when we recruit them?
The people.
From
Correct.
Agreed.
It's the same crew coming by us.
Yeah.
And what we try to do in 6 months in training, we try to shape their mind, boy. And that's a difficult thing to shape a person's mind. 18 years of culture to shape that person's mind. So that's why something
Now
else
with
is
power.
coming out. Huh?
Now with power.
Now with power. A power of arrest. A police officer have the ability to stand up on the rear Butler Highway and just pop his hands so and create a traffic stop for miles. That's the kind of power. So to answer your question, support, we get support, but people support us conveniently. When they want something to happen to somebody else, charge him. When your turn reach now,
Too wicked.
Yeah, you could, so it goes both ways and we are accustomed to that.
It's like customer service.
Well,
You see, when you go to a government building and how do you get treated? You come to the and they're moving like they had time for you. You understand? And you come on them time, or you go in an establishment to buy something to eat and they're treating you like, Sometimes the officers they get the same treatment, customer service. Like a business, if a business don't have proper customer service, you go flop. Nobody will come and do no business by you. So it's a
Well, it
a
depends.
holistic.
It depends, because that's a good point to make. You see, you're saying if you don't have good customer service, people wouldn't come to you, right? But it have some places you have to go.
You have a choice.
So it don't really matter what treat you now.
I
Right?
want to go in the station, but I had to go because something happened to me and I had to go.
Right.
But customer service is relative, because it depends again on culture. Because have you ever gone, say, Bamboo to buy a part, right? That is not the general, like, if you when you go to certain places, you have to adapt to the culture, and that culture might be seen as the average. Good morning, sir. How can I help you? That's not how it is. It's a bit more rootsy. But once you could fit in and understand that, is par for the course. And you get what you want. You could go there and spend 5 minutes, or you could go there and spend 2 hours. It depends how you adapt to the culture with regards to customer service, as you put it.
Well, maybe that is the issue in Trinidad and Tobago, right? Is that the law? I don't think the law, and I just being general here, updated itself with culture and what is functional. Because in the next segment, I'll do some research, because I can't remember the exact country. Is that if the law is functional with the people and the times, then when I stop, if it had, I'll just give an example. Let me say, all right, I'll give example.
You sure you want us to go to a break so you can do some research?
Yeah, it'll be a crime if we take too long. Right. We'll be back.
Hello, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Assistant Commissioner of Police Wayne Mystar, and you're viewing Manhood. And today's topic, we are looking at why do persons commit offenses? What is the root cause analysis of persons? And I can start off by saying This is from field experience. We would have interviewed, persons who would have committed offences, and to really hear, well, what was the why I did it. And you'll be surprised to know that one of the persons said they are observing people in high society committing crimes, white collar crimes, so to speak, stealing millions and that kind of thing. And in their mind, okay, what's
Who's
happening
me?
to us? The police
Yeah.
coming at us, okay, for guns or drugs, no problem, but persons getting away. We want a piece of the pie. And that is the reality. That is what they are saying. And because they want a piece of the pie, that particular person said, well, you know what? I want to be like Robin Hood. Because we all know this praise Robin Hood, but Robin Hood really was a person who was stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. So if you watch it, the whole setup, people are committing offenses, and they call them, some of them, community leaders, because they're helping the community leaders and they have finances to do so. But how they're doing it, they're robbing persons. And that's as real as I could get from when you feel from persons.
So in your experience, that's a very good analogy, and a lot of it comes down to fairness. And when people feel that they're not being treated fairly, in many circumstances, they're going to rebel. So in communities, a lot of times people just want you to stay in your environment, and I will do what I can to try and help you as long as you stay out of my community. And don't bring any robbery or rape or anything into my environment. But the persons themselves are looking at a nation, like you just said, where some are getting, and allegedly by means that are not quite honest and legal, and notice I use the word alleged, and other persons are suffering. The majority, there's a huge party community where the salaries are under $5,000, and we know that you can't really survive in a real way, have a mortgage, raise children, etc., and something like that. So as a result, is you do what is necessary, what you may see as necessary at that point, to survive. But not everyone is doing what's necessary. Then you take it another level now, and you simply want what you like, nice things too. So then you go another level. And so we come back down to the real crux, the real point of today's show, which is why would a man commit a crime?
All right. So let me go with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And for those who don't know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these basic need: food, shelter, right? Clothing.
Security.
Right? Well, yeah, security, but food, shelter, clothing. If a man can't provide that first for himself, then any means necessary. If a man then can't provide it for his family, whether it is his mom, his dad, whoever living in the house, or his wife, girlfriend, and child, then it makes sense. And again, I'm not condoning, but it makes sense that you do whatever is necessary. And then we spoke about before that if the law is not enforced in the way it's supposed to, then of course I could see ways I could get away. And then if I see, as you were saying, and you said, if I see other people doing it and getting away, then I even have more encouragement to do it. So again, I'm not condoning, and every man is responsible for his own behavior. But poor management of anything leads to people doing what is necessary. So if you're managing a business poorly, your employees will do whatever they feel like doing, that they need to survive or get whatever they want. If you're not managing your family properly, you'll get the same thing. So therefore, you're not managing a country properly, you'll have the same result.
Never run an next angle. What secondary school you attended?
QRC.
Queen's Royal College, right? I attended Belmont, intermediate, now St. Francis College. How much are your classmates probably run the same race as you, or be as successful as you, and so on? The point I'm trying to make is that we have a lot of our classmates who fell off the radar because they couldn't keep up with, let's say, the education system. Our parents tell us, okay, force us to think, okay, we learn our work, we come out of it. But there are plenty of the persons who wasn't inclined for that at all. What happened to them? Where are they now? Because the system is forcing us. When you watch SE, and they're highlighting, okay, you must pass at the school, and those schools get the big prestige. And what about the other schools? What about all the secondary schools? What's happening to all these people? They have to find alternatives. And if they can't fit in to the norms then what they have to do? They have to survive, you know.
I agree with you, and I see that's a management problem, you know.
Okay.
If things not working in our country, change it. It can't stay
Well, you know, there's that
it
saying,
can't stay the same.
Who it working
what you're
for?
not changing, you're choosing. And so, you know, or what you tolerate, what you not tolerate, what you tolerate, you validate. So there's all these things that run around, but I still want to. So why would a man commit a crime? So we've established reasons behind
Right, we go with survival.
why you would commit a crime for other reasons. Some for necessity, and others for want, and the others just because I could get away with it. If you know certain people, or you know I'm a big fish in a small pond, you will take the chance and break that line. You will take the chance and, you know, whether you get in an altercation or tell a police something, go down the priority bus route, and you get away with it because you know you have that culture, depends on who you know, and another person is looking at that and saying, look what this person has done, and look at what the punishment was for that or lack thereof. And here it is, I have just done this and I might be in jail.
I wanna be controversial and say I wanna blame the media too. Because we're looking at different reasons, right?
You could do that. You could
Right.
try to blame the media.
Yeah, when I say blame the media, I ain't pinpointing any, but when I talk about media too, I'm talking about also the institution at air television. Now, we glorify crimes, you know. You ever watch Ocean 11, Ocean 12, and Ocean 13? What that is?
Yeah,
That stars in that. What them fellas went and do?
correct.
Them fellas went and robbed this man from Las Vegas, a big heist. And they were the stars of the program.
Right.
We seen that, our children growing up seeing those things.
Yeah.
So it is sometimes
Even these
it's-
gang shows,
Yeah,
we look at it
it's
and we
okay.
like the...
It's glorified.
Yeah.
So in that context, we're talking about with the media, you know. So we air these programs, and over they seen it. I am happy. I want to be a Brad Pitt in that program. I watching that program, like serious thing.
And you're correct, and I'm glad you raised that, because one of the other reasons I was going to say is whatever you see, you will do, right? And we have a conscious and unconscious mind, or subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between right or wrong. All your subconscious knows what is repeated. So whatever you see all the time, hear all the time, you're wrong all the time, you'll get accustomed to, right? So if you grow up seeing crime around you, that is what you would want to do, because that's what you see, right? In most cases. If you grow up hearing certain types of music, that's what you would want to do. If you grow up seeing it on TV, if it's just around you, and also, and the point is, if you grow up seeing your leaders doing it, right? If you grow up seeing, and I'll tell you, I never forget, there's a group of boys I was doing some work with in a quote-unquote hotspot, and asked them what they want to be when they grow up. And most of them said, policeman or army man. And I was like, why? None of them said anything about helping people. None of them said anything about protection. But all of them said what they saw is the army man have a gun, so nobody will do him anything. The policeman could do whatever he want. And so I said, where you get our concept from? Sir, Mr. Ting, who is a policeman around here and ting. That is what they grew up seeing.
Those along in traffic, put on the siren, all those people see that and they think,
Right.
well, you could...
And
I want that power.
and when we
We get a
started,
lack of education too is that process too. Because if they're seeing that as what they want to be because of this, not the real reason, it means our education program process, educating. Now we talk about our parents long time. Our parents long time, most of the times they were robust. We did things out of fear, but benefited us technically. But it didn't have a real reason. Now the generation now challenging that. What is the real reason why you're telling me don't do this? We can't answer them. So
Why?
Well, I don't know.
why you can't answer them? You in that generation that can't answer, you know.
Well,
why you can't answer them?
Because I get brainwashed now. Coming up the things, so I could only. So
Let me shake your hand. Thank you for being honest. Right? And why I say that is because the people older than me, I am 40 years old. So, right, I am a millennial. But the people older than me, who in power, who are the leaders, can't answer the questions. Even if you can't answer a question, either one, you know the answer and you don't want to tell, or you don't have a clue. And if you don't have a clue, then you shouldn't be running anything. And if you can't answer honest, well, I mean, it had dishonest leaders, so I ain't saying it shouldn't be a leader, but then understand we are being run by dishonesty. And then let we accept that and let we move to suit and not pretend that we honest and we know everything dishonest. We know I could buy a license. We know I could pay extra money to get my passport quicker. We know those things. So pretending it don't exist is also part of the problem. And therefore, why would a man commit crime? Because I know these things exist. I know I could get away with it. Because if I know that, and at least the probability of me getting away with it is higher because I'm seeing it, then why not?
Well, to piggyback on what you're saying, you know, the new generation are doing research. You don't have some offenses here, it's not offenses in different parts of the world, right? It had different. So, for example,
Yes, I can't remember. Yeah, I have one. I
It
can't remember
have
what
those
it is.
things. So, if I am a student and I do research and I realize we're making a big fuss about certain offenses here, but when they go, okay, like for example, obscene language, I just say that, right?
An obscene and annoying language.
We have
Right,
that in our
that is
law.
it.
Yeah,
That is
Annoying
it.
language.
That is
I
it.
mean,
We have that in our law books, but when you go to the United States,
You can see what you
certain
want.
states, but you see police officers getting cussed out,
freedom of speech.
right? Telling them all kind of different things, and it's a normal thing. So our generation watching those things, why we so backward? I would say, why we so backward? Okay, they criminalize the aspect of marijuana, right? Some places that is free reign. You could have your trees, you could grow your backyard. So they're seeing those things. There's a rebellion taking place. There's a revolting. Things happening internationally, but we still here.
Yeah, yeah.
And we are
and
we
so
are
much
challenging
change.
that now.
But
Who
you
falls
mentioned
is that we
management.
still here?
Well, you mentioned
Management.
management.
Right? And I'm saying that because if we have a system where we have to elect managers, right? Then the managers have to do something. If the manager's not doing it, then the employees will then revolt and do what they have to do now.
However, I want to come back to not just the topic, but something we said at the start, the man in the mirror. Because yes, you can't keep looking at asking what your country could do for you. You also have to ask what could you do for your country, but also likewise, yes, you elect management, but you also have to tell yourself you're a grown man or a grown woman, and what are you doing to affect the community that you're living in, the children that you have, your nieces, your nephews, yourself. That man in the mirror and say, okay, am I going past and putting my nose out to the traffic light? Am I leaving a bottle there during carnival? Am I urinating on a wall? All of these little things that you think, it was just that. Who are you to decide I could just do this level of what is still considered crime? And then look at somebody else and your bold, like we like it say in Trinidad, your bold face, the bold facety of it is that you are determining the levels of crime that's acceptable. But you have to start with yourself
And
and introspect.
It's evolving, right? So let's get a classic example. You know, long time when you went to church, long time it was a sin in church to wear lipstick. If a woman had a dress up, I think, and wear lipstick, and the cargo sin. That what
Yeah,
was
can't go
right.
cinema. You
And
cannot
then-
go cinema. Right. Yeah, yes.
No,
yes,
but no,
yes.
but now,
All your old boy.
but now things evolve. If you go to church now, I mean, and this is no thing but people evolve. The dressing,
women could
thing.
dress with the arm out now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Women could wear pants because you couldn't wear pants before,
so
right?
I say that to say two influential things. So, for example, I was making a joke the other day. The artist, Shensi, right? She sang a big song, Hit and Run. And everybody live. If a man had sung that Hit and Run song, what would I get? No, I just say that. It's a real
This
thing.
is
And
manhood.
here, T-Fed quick, eh? You see that Hit and Run song?
Yeah.
I hear little children singing that song. That song is a hit with little children
Alright.
too. And people is laugh with the little children
And they know what
dancing
mean,
and things
Yeah.
And
Hit
I
and
just,
Run.
know
and I just
Correct.
one of these songs.
Right.
Just one of these songs.
Correct.
But yet still women will come. A woman is singing a song, but if a man sang, women are saying, how you're degrading a woman.
Degrade a woman thing.
And all of these
Same
things, but it's a woman singing it. And other women are singing along with it. So, and a lot of times, even when males sing it, when men sing it, it's women dancing in it. I saw this popular song now. I quite like it, Young Brother. The song now. And there's a woman in it, whining. And yes, I was looking at it yesterday and say, oh God, this woman could real wine by pelt waist, it's nice. And two women around me are going, you see? And I'm telling myself, but I am not watching a guy or somebody else is showing me this. It is the woman in the video. Why you have an attack on me for looking at what is clearly there for food?
So link it back now. If you link it back to why men. So the influence is a factor.
Influence have to be a factor.
Right.
Even though people responsible for the behavior, you could program somebody to do things.
Look, this fella, you all remember a fella they called Dodo Cook from Jamaica?
No.
He was a community leader, serious.
Yeah,
He was like,
serious.
you know, a known man. When the officials went for him, the community stand behind a man and was defending that community, shootout and everything, and communities with him fighting, you know. And he used to take care of his community,
Robin Hood.
right? And the people who growing up with that, they're seeing it. And they're saying, okay, this man is a good man because he feeding me, he feeding my parents, he getting books for everybody. So crime is okay in this context.
Right.
And that is happening most places too. Like, yeah, youth man ain't having nothing, and a man say, hey, I will get you this shoes or get you this thing, and you start to lean towards him, and next thing you know, you doing other jobs for you. And you get indoctrinated right there.
That's a good point, because I'll go back to the spiritual thing too. A person come and say, hey, accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and say, I just using that as a thing, right? But to a hungry man, God is bread, you know.
Right.
So if I just tell you accept, and accept, and I, so you say, if I call you and say, okay, come, you're hungry, look something to eat, then I looking at you now.
Yep.
As
And we go back Maslow hierarchy and needs. Food,
you're hitting the nail.
shelter, clothing. You give people these things because if they don't have it, then it's in scarcity, and I mean it will be their God, and again that is a management issue. And I'll manage my time and let me go to a break.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Manhood. We're speaking about why would a man commit a crime. And one point we left on is the influence of video games, the influence of music, the influence of things that people see around. And I was making the point of this Christmas, 2024 Christmas. I can't say all, but the majority of children I see running around with the water gel pellet guns, guns. Everybody running around shooting. I had some relatives from the States, and they were like, I now understand why Trinidad crime. So literally, they said that because you just seen children running around shooting each other. Now, in the past, people used to argue, well, that is just a toy. But one, a lot of them, look like real guns. Two, whatever you practice, that is where you get accustomed to.
I remember growing up with a little caps gun with a little red thing you used to, as a youth. Yeah, and when you used to spray paint the little red part black and use that, you understand? But no, it had to be how your mental upbringing is. I might grow up playing with that, but I ain't turn out no bandit or anything like that or looking for a gun.
Why? Why wouldn't turn out?
You sure? I don't go and check the records. No, that's what I'm double check. Anyhow, right.
I will say the details.
Tell me why. Why if you grew up still playing with it, you wouldn't turn out as a bandit or
I
a
understand, but I grew up in church, and I understand what right from wrong, and
crime? How you understand that? Who tell you that?
my parents.
Right. And that the management
I mean,
part
the
of
part
it
where we
now.
grew up in fear. Remember, we grew up in fear, you know. Remember licks. Don't do this. Why? No, we didn't ask why. We just do it because they said don't do
Yeah,
it.
but we say that
So
to
you don't want the licks.
And and we're afraid of licks. But when we reach the stage, no one thinking out of the box. People thinking out of the box now.
Right.
Why I mustn't do this? Then you made a point. Laws, right? No, let me ask you a question. Who does come up
with the laws.
with the laws? Sometimes I just feel, and I ain't feel too, but I think I'm convinced, unless somebody might come up with a law to suit a plan that they have to benefit, let me say, us, but I don't want them to benefit. So let me introduce this law that will say is an offense. Okay, let's use an example. The whole DSS thing, right? I'm just using that as an example.
Very good example. Thanks for reminding me.
Right. So I just say there are financial rules pertaining to those things.
Right.
But who the financial rules benefiting really and truly?
Right.
So
And how much
the-
of them know the rules?
Right.
Only a
But
few.
the man on the ground, he's saying that, hey, I could put this here and get back this here, and we could pull together like a susu, like generally like a long time susu.
Same
or
thing
like
the
a
bank doing,
Yeah.
but you can't do it.
But we can't do it. So why I can't do it?
That like,
I just throwing it out right now and say, right?
Wee and play.
Yeah.
Right? You know.
We are play, yeah.
Right? Wee illegal, right?
Right.
But play
And
illegal.
wappy and all those things.
But legalized now. So it's official. So who benefited now when it legalized?
Right.
Yeah.
But before, a man you hear, grandfather say he going down to play a mark. But long time police were running on men for that.
But it's the same thing with regards to marijuana. That was one of the reasons they say because you can't tax it. In the same way, it's easier to tax say, cigarettes and alcohol and things like that. So, which is why this until you reach a point out you can find out a way because
Right.
to
So was
easily
it
tax
was it our offense or is it that we're doing it so that we can get money from
to
it?
benefit? It has to benefit.
just say
you.
it, right?
But there's the other flip side to that because I mean this is a longer conversation when we talk about why would a man commit a crime. Part of that also is that in feeling a sense of unfairness, because we've seen history where people have had to rebel, people have had to kill, people have had to do certain things. Even Gandhi, had to turn to bloodshed at some point because it's the only way. Jesus, ran into the temple and started share licks. At some point things have to come to maybe some level, and levels of change. I don't want to say violence.
Change.
To
Change. That's a good point.
And as I said before, what you're not changing, you're choosing. And sometimes you have to. What we now benefit from, even Carnival, was born out of rebellion. And at that point, it would have been seen as, boy, what everyone's doing is.
How much of them know that? That it was born out of rebellion. How much of them know that? All they know is party.
So, and this is the point. What we enjoy now, at some point, somebody had to stand up. Somebody had to say,
That's
"This is
why."
Right. And so what you're saying there, we know, or at least we think we know, change is the only constant, right? We think we know that, but we want things to stay the same. And if anybody, whether it is you personally, whether it is in your family, whether it is a business, or a group or organization, or a country, if you refuse to change, then change will be made for you now.
Correct.
Right? And revolution is change. Revolution only become necessary when the things not changing. Because if we realize, wait now, we're in 2025, and this law needs to change, this needs to change, and we're doing things to make sure. By now we know it have too many cars on the road. Maybe we should do the train system. Maybe we should do a railway. Maybe the PTSD buses should be on time. Maybe all those things we know they're supposed to happen. That should change. That it's not. Then the only thing left for a man to do is do the revolution for himself. So if like you personal, like we say you want to get a new job, you want to lose weight, you want to whatever it is. If what you're doing not working, then you had to do something to change. So you had to have a self-revolution first. Then if you and your wife or your girlfriend, things not working out, you're casted to doing the same thing, you had to do something different. Your children not working out and are going step by step. Your neighborhood, your community. If it's not working out, then a man have to do something. You're looking in the mirror, yes, but you have to do something.
So are we saying then that, and I'm asking the question because I don't want to leave, there's a lot of open-endedness in this conversation. And, I don't want people to pick certain parts of it and think, boy, this is where I could take this and run, hit and run. I'd say it in another context, right? And is it that crime certain aspects of crime is a necessary evil? Because at that point, whatever, as we talk about here, Wayne, what that law may have been set up for at this point is no longer part of, say, this new generation. It is no longer applicable. So, for example, you find a lot of what we call our folklore. Folklore comes as a result of ways that communities would have put things in place to have levels of control over their kids, for example. So when you come up with things like
Larger
bless.
Right, for you to stay inside.
To stay inside. Don't go into the forest. When you go dwen, don't want you to go in the water. Stay away from the water's edge. things that levels of control in Ireland. When you talk about the mermaid that throws the comb and things like that, it was women who were considered at that point impure because of their menstrual cycle. There's a lot of things that were brought about as a result of means of control. So I'm saying, is crime then?
Like you say, means of management.
Management. Is crime then a necessary evil to sometimes bring about change? So, a lot of people may look at what could be a crime today, 10 years from now, might not be a crime. Or somebody, for example, somebody speeding, breaking the law, runs into a particular area, and then all of a sudden we get traffic lights. We get what's it called? The
walkover.
The walkover or the shoulder. Well, don't get me started on walkover, because you build walkover and you see people under the walkover running across the road, right? So how many people actually use them? But again, that's another show. Is that what we say? Like,
Yeah, well, I don't want to say publicly that it is that crime is a necessary evil, because we still had to go with, okay, this is the law here, and we had to adhere to the law.
But there
right?
are certain levels of crime too.
Well, I was saying,
Because you have a man under poverty, he can't feed the family, he looking for something to do, he can't get a job, he had to feed the family, he might go and shoplift.
yeah,
You
no,
understand?
you're
He
correct.
might rob somebody some
But
money.
crime is still a
to pay
crime,
bill,
eh?
but crime is that, but
crime is still a crime.
We had to
It's
go
what
to
you
levels
show.
of
literally on the
crime.
books, but I am saying greed, right? I'm using the word greed because I mentioned it before. Who are the person who come up and it doesn't be it's not the man on the ground
You come up with the law.
who does come up with the law. I just say But if we say and we have a plan, but we say, right, how to make some money, so on, so boy, and I say, right, you have power here, right. If we come up with a rule,
If I do have all the
rule to say,
$100 bills, let me change the $100 bills, right? Okay.
they come up with a rule that the only person supposed to come on manhood is men over 40. I'm just using that.
Yeah.
So we create a rule. So the person under 40 wants to, well, why are you doing that? But we just don't want all to hear.
I don't want to hear Gen Z perspective.
Yeah, we don't
You
want to
know,
hear all that. We want to
I
keep
do.
this in the
I
circle
just
here.
say it.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's a revolt. You say it's a revolt because the young generation revolting in their mind. They're challenging. And we as police officers, sometimes you say police officers have a discretion. Because sometimes we see certain things happening, and it's not that, I don't want to use the word we turn a blind eye, but sometimes we analyze a situation and we say, okay, sometimes you lock up a man, you put a man before the court, he have nothing. You put him before the court, he make a jail, he goes in, he comes back out worse because he meet friends and so on. He come back out with nothing, and he goes back and there's a cycle. Where is the change for this man?
Right.
Those are the kind of things we have to consider.
How, as you said that, I want to, because I don't mind even extending this segment. How do you look? You said discretion. Now, there was an example of a friend of mine recently. The estranged or the separated now from his wife, and went to the police station. She had a protection order. And the protection order was basically about getting back into the home. And in getting back into the home, it was like, well, how are you coming back into my home? It's not really my home. It's a dwelling with other persons there. I'll get something for you. Now, the piece of paper was an instruction by the court for a certain action. But the police officers at that point were able to look at that, and even though there's an order, to understand the circumstance, because it was over a weekend, so they couldn't do anything until you can't go to the court until Monday unless you go to a justice of the peace. And they were able to, as you said, use discretion and understand the particular situation and had them resolve their particular situation to then rent a place for her. So my thing, Wayne, at that point, I would have felt, hearing the story, went, wow, kudos to those officers for using the noggin, as they say, and using that discretion, working out a situation, but in not even technically, but as law enforcement, they were supposed to enforce that law, regardless of what you say in here. I'm supposed to enforce that law, which could have ended up into probably a situation of domestic violence. How again, when I mentioned to you, especially you in a senior capacity, having to manage and lead other minds, like we spoke about those 18-year-olds and these people coming here, how do you how do you manage around that? The difference between the law and what you know is right.
Right, so let me shift it around. Let's say they had used the discussion, and let you say that over the weekend the man killed his wife. Now the same people who was saying Hosanna to the highest on a Sunday was the same people the next week say crucify him. You know? The same people. So you may applaud us for using discussion in this, but if something has switched now, you say, well, why the police didn't enforce it? So that's why sometimes we have to take the hard approach, especially with domestic violence now, and go with the law, because we can't afford to take no chances. So when I talk about discretion, sometimes sometimes if you could go and resolve a situation and you know it could work, then all good and well is a win-win situation.
But do you have that bandwidth, is what I'm saying to you? Is it an unspoken
No, there's
word?
nothing in law saying that we could use our discretion. It's either you commit an offense and we lock you up or not. But there's always the human, the what you call not the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law, that we need to sometimes look at as human beings, because at the end of the day, when you think outside the box, where is this going? It's not going anywhere.
But could you be brought to task for that if that was then recognized? Like, for example, if after the fact this situation is resolved and a good deed was done and domestic violence was, potentially averted, is it that another officer who may have been listening in could say to himself, but you were supposed to enforce that law and you didn't? Could you be reprimanded for that?
You could, because there's a court order now. Court orders must be followed by the police officers. So you could do it. You could do two ways. You could still serve the person, and still offer that counseling as part of our actual layer. But anytime they refuse to do the court order and just do the counseling alone, so you have to go hand in hand somewhere along the way. So we have to follow the law.
So we come back to when we spoke about reward and consequences and fear, like with licks and all these other things. Are you now going to say, listen, I know that this could be resolved this way. I know this is the right thing to do. I am people too. As it voice had said it, we is people too, I is people too. And you know that this could be avoided there. But are you then going to say, I'm not going to take this road because, you know what, I have my family to feed. I'm looking for this promotion. I'm not trying to get involved in that. Family, here what? This is what have to happen. And we go down a road almost like locking somebody up for something that is minor, and then we turn that person possibly into a criminal, or in this case, a domestic violence case that could be averted.
Robert, you see those factors you're saying there? When you're managing anything, you'll have elements or variables, extraneous variables, things that you couldn't figure out before, you couldn't predict. And therefore, a good manager will now put systems in place. So you're running a business, certainly with customers, you never know. You write a new amendment, you write a new law, you write a new contract. And therefore, that means it's change. If things are not changed, because as time go forward, new elements will come. So before, it was based on fear. You do this, you have to listen to it. So let's just say there's a court order, you have to enforce it, but then have other elements that could play. So now, and in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, there are things like, okay, there's a counselor that accompanies a policeman for a domestic. We have things like gender-based unit, things like that now. But things should be put in place as things change. So therefore now, people don't have to take it upon themselves to make the change. And people, of course, may not have legislative power, right? And then even as you say, the spirit of the law versus the actual law. If you have subsidiary or ancillary services that could accompany the police or anything now we could go anyway. Even if we're coming back and we see we are time. So why would a man commit a crime? If a man don't have food, right? In countries have ancillary services like social services, they have things where if people don't have something, we could go in the community and provide. But if the management not providing those things, then there's a possibility then I have to take it upon myself. And again, I'm not going with blaming other people for other people's behavior, because whatever a man do, he's responsible for. But if I don't have food, you can't tell me then just starve and hope for the best, right? You can't watch anybody in good conscience and tell them do that. If my children don't have food, or I lose my job, or something along those lines. You can't just say, well, you just wait and hope somebody will help you. You have to go out and do something. And if whatever system's in place, because you don't have legislative power to create the system, then of course the management fail, and then I have to find another system. And if the system I find is illegal, but because the legal system not relevant or not in alignment with what's going on in the current time, then I have to do what I have to do. So my answer to why would a man commit crime? One, I would say, is not something you should do, because the law is the law, right? There are consequences to breaking the law. But we'll give some reasons why already, and there are reasons why a man may commit a crime.
But I want to thank you for saying, you're saying that the police now, here where we are, we always have the bad end of the stick. You know why? Because our job is just to enforce the law, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are not concerned, or I shouldn't say not concerned, but we have no say in the management structure in how society is supposed to be.
Okay.
So you're telling me now, okay, this man committed those offense, lock him up. But you know, mentioned that man in no food. He grew up in a family structure where poverty and that kind of thing. That had nothing to do with me as the police officers.
Correct.
But we are seen as the bad guys, because when we go out to arrest the offense, they are looking at, but why the police coming at us?
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, the police and the people are saying, the police should be arresting other people and give us a chance. Oh, that's saying there's
No, but you make a real good
and,
point.
and we are always the bad guys.
We you know, you mentioned one with the traffic lights, and this is another wow moment, because you are right. Many a time, people look at you doing your job and enforcing the law, and but again, because you're front facing, you're in their face. So somebody sees me on the road, for example, and they have an issue with Guardian Media, or something happens, they're going to come and challenge me about it. They're going, because I'm the one that's a representative of that point of Guardian Media. So in the same way, even though you're just doing your job, they don't know, like we said, who's making these laws. So they might be able to speak to that PS or the Senate or the cabinet or the minister, or who all these other people that are lobbying or create the particular laws or put it in place. You're the one that's taking away their husband or brother or person at that particular point. So there's an I using certified ways and I overstand. You know, we overstand certain things, but at the same time, every action must have a reaction, and you use the word there just now, consequences. Whether we could relate, there's still a consequence for whatever action that was taken. And so I don't really want to use the time left on my summary of this conversation, because I really want to hear from you, Wayne. And it'd be remiss of us not to have, in the midst of a state of emergency, not to have a conversation of your thoughts on that, whether it is going to resolve anything in this country. And do you think we are lost cause? Basically.
Right, so to answer the last question first, no, we are not a lost cause. We could, as a wise man, as a man said it, we could make Triangle go safe again, you know. That could happen. And I mean, that is my mantra. We could make it safe again. And
what would it take? I don't want just to say that, just like that. We could make it safe again. What? And I'm asking you not just as ACP, I'm asking you as your manhood, I'm asking you as a citizen.
I honestly believe that we are still the best planet, the best country on the planet, right?
I agree.
Because we are accustomed to a level of freedom which we experience. The day that we lose that freedom, then we'll understand it. But we had a level, and we could do it. But I believe education is really important. I believe also too that you take everybody, you do a skill banks taking the service, find out who is an expert in what, who could do this. All of us can't do the same thing. I talk about when we left school, where are our colleagues? And we see what was happening. We need to find out and find a chart for them. And if you could find a chart for them by educating them as this direction they could go in, it could work out. But it's a collaborative effort.
So my next question then would be, do you think it will be done? Because we could say this is what it will take to bring Trinidad back to sweet TNT again, you know. But do you think in our lifetime that somebody's going to have the cojones to be able to do that, and that the nation will support such a decision?
It could happen. It has a lot to do this young generation, and I will consider myself in this generation, meaning that even though I consider myself a hybrid because I do my research, I like to keep learning and so on, so I want to keep abreast. And there are persons who are challenging the status quo. They're going to challenge it, and somewhere along the line, somebody's going to evolve and emerge.
And the status quo will die eventually, right?
Well,
I mean, they're holding on, but you can't fight age, right? And when the status quo go on, I mean, then things will have to change, you know. Change. Yeah. Trinidad have to change. We're trying to keep Trinidad the same as
But would it be at peace? Would it be a transition peacefully, or do you think it needs to change like a
that depend on the management.
Coming to a communist environment?
That depend on the management.
I'm not gonna say that's the management.
It depend on the management, whether it's
you had
violent or not.
You had to manage the little ones coming up. It can't change just so. It's a generational change. You manage the little ones. I saw, I think it was Australia. Australia had a gun law license like US, and they had a lot of mass shootings. And one day the Prime Minister said, well,
New Zealand.
it was New Zealand, right? And they just get rid of all the guns. And from the development, from the little ones, come up. Look how China does do it. Look how Japan does raise the little ones. And they're very disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's management.
And that is management.
Technology will help us, you know, because whether you like it or not.
Nah.
No, I'll tell you why. We can't get away from it. You could say what you want now on social media, whoever platform, wherever people just talk. You know, just people, everybody who never used to talk before have a voice on Facebook or on whatever platform, and they're speaking out. So we hearing long time. We people just saying what they used to think long time, but they're coming out and saying it now. And those are the kind of things that drive change. So when I stand up and say, you know what, from now on, I really don't feel breaking a traffic light at 3 in the morning. If it had nobody, no cars coming, and I could proceed. And people lobbying those things, and after
people lobbying the part. That is the part.
That's not a problem too.
I
I find myself doing that. If I stop John by that traffic light down there, if you feel like going and wait a whole 2 minutes for that light to change, no, I proceed with caution because nobody run out on me at 3 o'clock in the morning.
But you know, again, gents, we could be going down. There's a rabbit hole there because all of this leads to what we call consequences. And lobbying in Trinidad is a bit different because of those same said consequences. Who is going to stand up, put their hand up, and be recognized in that case? Yes, you have some people who take to social media, say a couple things, whether it be out of emotion, something that they have experienced at that particular point, and they rant and they vent, and they might then decide, okay, I could develop a podcast as well. But at the same time, there are consequences by calling out a name. There are consequences by going after a particular situation because your job may be affected, family life may be affected. The things that, as we spoke about reward and fair and all these other things that could affect whether or not you want to come together and make a change. Because you can't tell me that people in Trinidad right now and Tobago are happy with what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming management. I'm not saying is this one fault or that one fault. It is what it is. It is where we are. And I'm saying that where is that passion, like with the KFC ketchup, right? When everybody was up in arms about those things, where is that passion and compassion to make a real change and let all parties look in the mirror at yourself as well and say, I want to make a change to bring back this country. I'll give you one quick example. I know we're running out of time. We're way past time. But when I was returning just before New Year's actually, and a guy sat next to me and said, oh, you're from Trinidad and all that. And I said, yes, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Made sure to let him know it's Trinidad and Tobago. And he said, wow, you know, and it's the first time I heard it. People normally come and ask the question, what's it like in Trinidad and Tobago? He asked me, how do you cope with the violence in Trinidad and Tobago? And you're going back to an SOE. Now, when I left, it wasn't a state of emergency. I returned to an SOE. And it made me feel at that point when he asked the question, I said, wow, through his eyes, this guy is probably thinking I'm returning to
A war zone.
like a war zone.
Yeah, war-torn
You know,
nation.
a war-torn nation. Like how we may be looking at people going to certain areas of Afghanistan.
Well, probably we are
and-
portrayed like that
No, but
out
I'm
there
just,
to him.
so I'm there now trying in my mind saying, listen, you're not gonna walk away from me now. At that point, I pull out my airport. I know you're not gonna walk away from me now, thinking that my country is a war-torn zone. You know, so I then started to tell him, I said, buddy, I going back to, to have a drink. Trinidad is not the place that's being depicted in said media. There are issues. It's a group of persons, etc., that are causing this. But at the same time, the majority of Trinidad and Tobago accepting it. Remember, you say what you're not changing, you're choosing, is resulting in where we are at this moment. But again, that's a whole other manhood. I still want to find out your thoughts on state of emergency because
Okay,
again,
well, senior enforcement, right? No, the state of emergency have a purpose, right? And it gives the police some additional powers to operate. If you want to use the word a little more freely, in that sense, of course, by law. So its function will cause results, as you're seeing, right?
are we seeing that?
Yeah, because, let me ask you a question. What was the murder rate last year around the same time?
I don't know. I can tell you what it ended at. I can't tell you what it started
Okay,
at.
but is that drastic
I
difference?
think it was about 6 or something. So
That was more than that,
More
at
than
least for the corresponding period last year, right? So the effects will work, but our main issue is that the SOE there's a time period. The maximum the SOE could go to is 6 months, maximum.
Right.
Other than that, it cannot go beyond that. So we have to be just thinking about, okay, then what is going to happen next? Because I don't know if you could recall in 2021, after the pandemic, state of emergency was over in November of 2021. That month was one of the bloodiest months we had. As soon as they say SOE over, as soon as the Prime Minister says as of midnight tonight, that is it. November was explosive. It's like people were just waiting.
Control.
So
The
we
controls were
observing now
removed.
that, okay, yes, okay, we have, it's a suppressive technique, but what is going to happen, we could only tell after the SOE.
It's unsustainable.
It can't be sustained because there's a time period.
But I'm just saying,
as it stands,
that measure of control, it's like taxing a nation. It's not sustainable.
it's not sustainable.
So, all right, I mean, like,
Right? But it's for its purpose, it's going okay, it's working, but our concern will be, of course, afterwards. Let's see.
Okay.
so closing thoughts. Closing thoughts. Why would a man commit a crime? In general, your closing thoughts on this discussion here today.
Well, I would say,
Speak to the nation. That's your
yeah,
comment.
I will say that, Trinidad and Tobago, there are several reasons. There isn't any one specific reason. So there's a number of factors, and I believe it deals with, I honestly believe, in environment. So whatever our environment is what will come out of that environment. So if you're in an environment of X, Y, and Z, then this could be the end result. And sometimes when you change the environment, it changes your whole mindset. So I just want to say that there are many reasons why persons commit offenses, but there are also the cases where persons are challenging the status quo because what was an offense years ago now is not an offense in some cases in some jurisdiction. So that's basically my take in closing. But as it stands now in the interim, we're asking persons that in the existing laws to obey the laws, because our function as police officers is to uphold the law. So obey the laws as it stands now until.
Why would a man commit a crime? Because it's what he see, because it's of some value to him, because he want to protect himself or get the basic food, clothing, shelter. Sometimes it's because we talk about the Robin Hood concept. I see, look, these people taking so much, so why not? And then the next one I would say, why would a man commit a crime? Is because it don't really have enough consequences for him. So if I know consequences, I would do it. Now, my caveat is he shouldn't commit crime because it's against the law. But we asking why, and those are my reasons.
all what Johan suggested I can't add to that.
Yeah, Les, I take your position on that. It's really being said and ventilated. In a general sense on today's episode, and there's so many areas that we could definitely delve deeper. Some areas are a rabbit hole for sure, because why would a man commit a crime? There's so many reasons. But is crime, crime isn't correct. Crime is a cause, but it's not correct, and there are actions, there are consequences for your action, and I would say, but is it a necessary evil? I would say that history has shown that as a result of people doing what would be considered crime then, not now, there was change, and change is necessary. Peter Drucker, I believe, said it, the only constant in life is change, or the only constant in your environment is change. And so, but there are consequences, whether the right controls and managements need to be put in place. That's certainly something that needs to be looked at, but something needs to change. We can't continuously go through this period. And I would say, to take your words, Wayne, let's start with the man in the mirror. What change can we make? And again, if we're not changing it, we're choosing it. So thank you, Johanse, Wayne, Les, for joining us here today on this episode of Manhood. What makes a man commit a crime? See you next week.
Manhood, brought to you in part by Reboot Sports Drink. Manhood, brought to you in part by Solomon's Bespoke.